Welcome back to the Story Hour and our interview with the co-founders of Super78, Dina Benadon and Brent Young.
So I'd like to pick up a little bit where we left off. We've spoken about themed entertainment and we've spoken about experience design. And I'm sure many of us have come across experiences that are simply just that, and there's no story underneath them. But I feel that's the most important part. So I'd love to get your spin on your view on story, and what does storytelling for experiences look like? What's that process for you?
So, when we approach different, attractions from just kind of the blank slate, as we kind of talked about earlier, there's the conventions that, go into it. We pick a theme and then you start to develop the story around the theme. The things that make memorable stories within the conventions of a theme park, it's the same thing when you look at conventions of, a rock and roll show, a big theatrical production. Everybody has these elements that make, the conventions of their storytelling, right? And, Dina and I were talking about this earlier. When we were just recently, we were watching with our son on Disney Plus, Hamilton. I have this little playbill. We got to see that. And it's like, when you take hip hop, history, and theater, three very strange things, you say, everybody knows Hamilton now. But what you're doing is subverting that convention, right? You're saying, okay, well, these are the conventions. Lion King is, we can do this, or Mamma Mia, this. And then someone comes along and says, well, we're going to take these different ingredients and throw them in and create a different convention, or we're going to subvert these conventions in these ways. And so we always look at this as these are the things that are either colossal successes or huge flops, right? Mm-hmm. When you subvert these conventions. So you can think about like Christopher Nolan, right? And Memento, right? And Tarantino, right? In Pulp Fiction. And he's taking these conventions of filmmaking and they're turning them around. They're still the same, but very different. And then we really gravitate to those. And that's what we're doing in the theme park industry all the time, mm-hmm. right? You're taking the conventions that you have laid out, and then you pull things from other storytelling mediums, right? Mm-hmm. And now we even have VR now to layer in to all of this, right? Where we can use, more tools at our disposal, VR and AR, to be able to bring different aspects to the storytelling. Mm-hmm. So I think, with what we do, it's looking at theater. From my personal background, I was a huge rock and roll, like heavy metal fan. I came out of the music industry, right? So when I grew up, I was influenced by Kiss and Queen and, with giant spectacle. And all of that has influenced my, creative development and sensibilities for storytelling, because there's spectacle, there are characters, there are concepts. You think about The Who and Tommy. One of the first concerts I went to see was The Who. And, that is storytelling through music, through spectacle, but it's also participatory, right?
Yep.
So when you go to a concert, what do? Everybody stand up, everybody sing along, right? You are part of the story. So much like where theaters don't really have that, but now they're adding interactivity. You don't go to Hamilton and they say, you're part of the army. It would be great if they did, and you sang along. That would be fun, right? You break that convention.
Well, and my background is theater.
Which is a perfect mix, yes.
And grew up, in the theater essentially, and loving like Tony and Tina's wedding. You remember that, where you were a part of this wedding, or Tamara, or any of those.
Sleep No More.
Sleep No More now.
New York, yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, so it's just so exciting that you get to be a part of something in a different way.
And that's so powerful, that being part of something You know, I mean, without being political, because I'm completely not, that's what's behind every movement, whether it's like positive or negative, this sense of a collective and being part of something together,
Absolutely.
being part of a tribe. I always say that's why people would go on a vacation, they'd meet another family and spend a week with them, and they remain friends forever and ever after 1 week of a shared experience. Like, it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
And I feel we could use it in an entertainment way, but with something stronger at the heart of it, which isn't a conversation for now, but it's just such a great way to corral people and bring them together around something good.
Well, actually, we're working on a project right now that, really does combine all of those things. And, what you were saying about bringing goodness to the world, or education, again, feed the mind, that's something that we love to do.
Yeah.
And Dina and I have a project that we got involved in 2013.
Very accidentally.
Yeah.
We were doing some research for a museum project, and it was all about Walt Disney. And at one point, Brent said to me, did you know that Walt Disney was born in Chicago? And I said, I don't think so. I think it was somewhere else. And he's like, no, here it is. And he shows me the house that he was born in Chicago. And Brent and I go back to Chicago all the time. He's from there. So we called our friends. We had them take a look at it, and we ended up purchasing the home where Walt Disney and Roy Disney were both born. And the more we dug into that story, the more we could not, there was no choice for us but to do something about this.
We actually have a video to show, but I just want to show how far this has gone. I'm not sure. So can you explain to the audience what I am holding up?
Yes. Well, it's all part of the story, right? It's part of Walt's story. That's the Ozell.
Ozell soda is a soda that we also make. Did you know that we're soda makers? Yeah. And so this was part of the story of Walt's story. And when we found that out, we had to launch the soda all again. So.
Yeah, his father in 1911 moved back to Chicago to start the Ozell Soda Company in Chicago, and Walt actually worked cleaning bottles for his father and put himself through his first formal art training.
And I believe the little 4-pack that I have has a number of flavors in it. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm holding root beer.
You know what, Brian? You got one of the first 4-packs ever produced, but we now have 6 flavors. We have root beer, cream soda, cherry, grape, pineapple whip, and
vanilla. Cream soda, yeah.
Ooh, that's my favorite. But I just want to point out to you that I have not put this on eBay. As you know, is my bottle numbered?
It is. That is one of the first. Yeah, the batches. I can tell by the cap.
There's the cap for those that don't know how to bring that into focus.
Right.
But so I know, because we talked about this in the very beginning, and I was not in Chicago with you, but was there when the discussions began. And I could see your dedication. It felt to me, it just didn't feel like telling Walt's story. It felt like you were, I don't know how to describe this, spiritually connected to this story in some way. Like the work that you do now makes you uniquely equipped to preserve and tell that story.
Absolutely. I think it, in some strange way, it was waiting for people like us to find it. And it was actually hiding in plain sight, this place that is so magical. When you walk in, you feel it. Everybody does. And we've had Imagineers, family members, granddaughters, grandsons. When they walk in, they feel that this is kind of the origin, right, of where that all began, and it's very powerful.
And I think, it kind of got lost in the history of it. And because Walt was so young, he was born in the home, lived there till he was a little over 4 years old. At the time that we found the house, our son was 3 years old. And so we were able to understand kind of what he was going through at that time immediately as we were involved in this. And that really helped kind of catapult us forward into this, because we didn't know what we were doing, but we're like...
And to know, kind of to understand what level of development he was at as a child and how important that environment must have been to later influence and be part of what Walt ultimately became, because he and his brother formed that bond. Roy, who was much older than Walt.
He was 8 when he was born, and they lived there till he was 12.
Yeah, so he essentially was the surrogate father for Walt. So that bond and that relationship, which became the Walt
the Disney Brothers Studios,
and then ultimately Walt Disney Studios, was formed at very early childhood stage in their development and then continued throughout their life. So this is really the origin story.
And we know this is true because Walt had many other businesses that all failed until he partnered with his brother, which is...
Well, since every hero has their origin story, and clearly Walt is your hero, let's see exactly what you've been doing.
One interesting thing about this project is, as I tell people about it, they're relatively shocked that Disney was born in Chicago. Most people don't know that.
This is the legendary carousel, where Walt came with his daughters and dreamt up Disneyland. This is the place where Walt and Roy Disney had their first animation studio. The first Walt Disney Studio lot, where Snow White was made, now has a supermarket on it.
It's a heartbreaking tragedy that we've lost and are still at risk of losing so many of the important buildings of Walt Disney's past.
Keeping alive the memory of Walt Disney means holding on to and caring for what remains of his past. Because each time we lose another physical piece of Walt's history, it's gone. Forever.
This is the very house that Walt Disney was born in on December 5th, 1901, and where he lived until he was 4 years old. Those critical first years in his development, all of them in this house.
His younger sister Ruth and his older brother Roy, who spent 12 years here, were born in this house as well.
This is what it looks like today.
Over time, renovations and alterations have almost completely covered up the authentic details of the house that Walt's parents, Elias and Flora Disney, designed and built themselves.
If nothing were done, every last trace of this home's extraordinary heritage would soon disappear.
We're joining a community of like-minded people who are working together to preserve this important piece of Walt Disney's history.
This is the dream, a complete restoration of the Walt Disney birthplace to its original state, earning it the landmark status it deserves.
I think the Disney House is Chicago's equivalent of the Abraham Lincoln log cabin.
Historic preservation really is a melding of architecture and art and history. We're sort of the guardians or caretakers or stewards of the built environment and a record of humanity through that built environment. When you have a building that has a connection to someone who had such an impact on society or culture, someone like Walt Disney, for instance, it's one thing to say, to walk by a site and look at a plaque and read about someone whose house may have been there in the past, but it's something quite different when you actually see the physical structure in front of you. And you can imagine in your mind the people that were living there and the type of clothes they wore, what they ate in the morning, and how they walked to school just the same way that we do now.
This is where the story began, and now you can be part of the story.
Together, we can restore the magic.
Beautiful. Where are you in the restoration?
Well, that was the initial video that we made in 2013. So
wow.
It's come a long way since then. We have actually completed the preservation of the exterior and the interior. It's completely done. We've had a lot of help along the way. We've had a ton of donors. We've sold bricks. We've sold fence posts, like all of the things that we could to kind of help us. And then Disney came to the rescue also in 2016, and Bob Iger himself announced a grant to the effort, and we put that money to great use, and that's really what catapulted us to the finish line here, and to really get ready to create this immersive experience of what that's going to be. So that's where we are now, but it's beautiful. We even put we have a library, a free library for the community, and Disney Publishing donated a bunch of books to that. So it's really been such an amazing ride, and we're so proud of so many things about that.
Yeah, especially the impact of the community. It's a working class neighborhood, just like it was when Walt lived there. It hasn't changed. It's an immigrant neighborhood. And the school that Roy went to is still there, Nixon Elementary School, and the kids who live in homes just like Walt's that were built over 100 years ago, they live in these very similar homes. So they all take they take ownership in that. And many of them were aware that Walt Disney was born in their community. So you can imagine the impact that has on a community of largely underprivileged people. But they can see that American dream. It's like, wow, Walt Disney was from here. He lived in a house very much like mine. They went to school at the same school I went to. And look what he created through creativity and hard work and, just following his dreams. And look what has come of that. And that is the message that, we really want to put out. It's that following your dreams. If you're a creative person, develop that creativity. That is useful in all walks of life.
And as as part of the community, we really want to nurture that effort and kind of help families, nurture creativity and innovation in their children. And it's a really, really exciting project, and it's just ever evolving. So we can't wait to see where else it goes. And, we just recently did a live virtual tour through the birthplace. I was going to
ask about being able to tour this or capture it in volumetric so that it's forever preserved, so that, in virtual reality, so that people who are unable to get to the location still have the opportunity to experience it.
Yes, and we'll be doing that again, and everyone can check out and look for new information. We have a newsletter that goes out every month. Follow us on social media.
How do people subscribe to that newsletter, and how do they follow you on social media?
The Walt Disney Birthplace on Twitter or Instagram, and also a website. And you can learn more about how to see the birthplace virtually and
our Facebook page. Also, we're doing a virtual 5K that's going on right now, so you can sign up for that. But yeah, just everyone who's interested and inspired by Walt Disney, it's a fascinating story, and you can really go down the rabbit hole on that, as we did. Obviously, and to be honest, I mean, you mentioned Walt Disney, is one of your heroes. That it wasn't until we actually purchased the birthplace and really started restoring it that, we really understood who Walt Disney was. Up until that point, Walt Disney was, I think, kind of on the same level as it was with everyone growing up when we did. You saw him on TV, and he was Walt Disney. We had a little more affinity because the neighborhood we live in is where he came to, here in Silver Lake, and they started the studio. And, but it's been evolving, that understanding of Walt's story. But it is a quintessential American story.
Did you document behind the scenes as you did all the renovations? Is there a record of this?
We did. We're working on that. We've got all the footage. We're putting it together. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, I mean, it was years, right? I mean, none of this, what Dina and I think the takeaway that we had, several years into it was we were so used to getting, a budget and a location and some of the constraints, and then you go, and they have an open date and you need to hit it, it's 1 year from now and we're going to make it. And that's what we did. But now we kind of changed the relationship, which was...
Well, now we have to find the money first before we can do the things we want to do. So
And
that's a little different.
Can people make donations? Is there
Absolutely.
a website where they can do that? And where is that?
At the website. Yep.
Yes, please. On
And
the
the
website
is the
sure.
WaltDisneyBirthplace.com?
.org.
.org. Great. I have one more question, and Allison and I have talked about this a lot. The current state of the world, location-based entertainment, theme-based entertainment, and personally experience with working together, projects that Super78 and Storytech Immersive have pursued together. Everything just sort of like came to a halt because people cannot go to these locations. And yet when I talked to Dina recently, she talked about China and how things were beginning to open again. So how do you see the future of your form of entertainment in the world as it's being transformed?
Yeah, well, that's a really crystal ball kind of question. Actually, I have a crystal ball over here. Maybe I should look at it. But, it's very hard to know right now. We look to the industry leaders like Disney to start to develop those best practices because obviously they're operating and they need to operate safely. That's their bread and butter, and 30% of their revenues come from the theme parks, and they've been devastated by not having these theme parks open. So, we're looking and actively participating in concepts and ideas of how we can, safely be able to experience some of the things that we're doing, and frankly, where online, like virtual tours, no substitute for being, in the real space. Certainly, it's a different platform to be able to explore the story, in our case, of Walt Disney's birthplace, but also to be able to explore some of the attractions that we have done, media-based attractions like live characters, being able to have those live on the internet, streaming. So we're looking to shift kind of some of the work that we've done and move that into platforms that are right now, safe platforms to be in. And, we imagine that in our industry, imagines maybe it's a 9 to 12 month, process that we're really looking at to come out of this on the other side. But again, I don't think anybody knows at this point. I think, we're just all guessing.
Well, I have a feeling, having known you for as long as I've known you, that you will find yet another source of inspiration and will probably lead in this initiative as well. After all, you were the first, Mushroom was the first in-headset editing experience for themed entertainment, was it not?
Yeah, that was another technology that we developed. And, you mentioned, creating a VR version of the birthplace. We did that in 2013 on the first Oculus. Right, so that was done.
I'm not worried about you. We're not worried about you, right, Allison?
I mean, that was, we certainly looked at that technology and said, this is the closest thing to being there that we have, right? And using that tool as something for designing and development was critical, especially in the alignment of stakeholders and making sure everybody was aligned with the concepts. And we've used that platform since 2011, I believe, for all development of all of our attractions.
I mean, I think that's one thing that, really speaks to the core of who we are and Super78, which is, so excited about the future and, ready to pivot at a moment's notice, being flexible. I think being flexible is kind of what we need to survive in these times right now, and just rolling with it. There's a light somewhere, I think, as far as why this happened or how we're moving forward, and good things will come of it.
Well, Super78 has led in transforming the experience of story while maintaining the integrity of story. And I have a feeling you will continue to do that. I have one last question, which is, where did the name Super78 come from, and what does it mean?
That goes all the way back to our roots, really. Dina and I, we worked on these large format film projects, right? Which is 70 millimeter IMAX, Omnimax, all of that. And so Super 78 was really a description of a film format that never existed, right? It was 78 millimeter, but Super 78, and it was the next thing.
The biggest and the best.
Yeah, it was.
Never made.
It was the next thing at
that
the time.
That makes perfect sense, because you continue to create the next thing.
Yeah.
And you built it around a theme. I love it. Is it actually?
Of course you would get that, Allison.
Thank you so much, Dina and Brent, for joining us today. I would love, and I'm sure Allison as well, we would love to have you back, because you're constantly innovating and you're constantly creating new rides, and there are constant projects. And I count myself among the fortunate to have been able to bring some things to you that we can work on together. So I kind of know what you're up to. And I think every time something new launches, we would love for you to come back and join us at the launch to explain how you did it, because you're never doing the same thing twice. You're constantly inventing for the stories that you have to tell, that the audience gets to experience. So we look forward to having you back again and again and again. And as the world finds new ways to open up, I know that you will find new ways of telling stories.
And can I just add to that? Sorry, Dina, just to say, I also think as we evolve and we go through this crazy time that we're in right now, for people to go to an attraction or a theme park, they're already buying in. They're all ready to suspend their disbelief. They're in already. So you can, do these experiences, and you can pull them into something on a phased approach, and they're already in. If we are shifting to something that's more home-based, whether that's VR or AR or XR or whatever it is, we don't have that immediate buy-in. So I would love to echo what Brian said. As things evolve, I'd be really interested to have you back again and find out how that language evolves as well, right? So yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll see all of you again. And thanks for tuning into the Story Hour.
Thank you.
Thank you.